Welcome to the Value of Recruitment podcast with me, Jon Brooks. Sponsored by Atlas, the recruitment platform helping you become an AI-powered recruiter. This week, I'm joined by Keith Langbo, CEO of Kelaca, a culture-focused recruitment firm headquartered in the US. Keith has decades of experience in creating high-value solutions for his clients. And now he's using AI to gather the insights his recruiters need to find exactly the right people for each role. In our conversation, we talk about how recruitment has lost its value over the past few decades and how we can take our place at the highest point in the value chain. We also talk about the reputation of the industry being a barrier to great recruiters and how we can educate hiring managers to create a better outcome for everyone. Keith has a fascinating take on what great recruitment looks like now and how it can become even more valuable in the near future. Enjoy the show. I hope you find it valuable. Keith, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, John. Happy to be here. Grateful for the opportunity.
No, it's exciting to talk about your views on things. And I know you're developing some really interesting stuff. So I want to hear how you think that's going to change the game and how the game is going to change around us as well.
We're certainly trying. I hope the game changes. That makes it fun.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So let's kick off with the big question. In your eyes, how valuable is recruitment?
Wow, that is a big question. How valuable is recruitment? I think I might piss some people off, John, in my response to this. So apologies to everybody that now doesn't like me. I think recruitment has lost a lot of its value. And I'm old enough to say, and I'll date myself a little bit and say I've been doing recruitment for about 30 years now. So I think I've got some years of wisdom or experiences to stand on. But I think recruitment has lost value in the recent, I'll say 2 decades, and maybe even going back a little bit before that, before LinkedIn, things like that. Somewhere along the way, I think recruiters started treating people like products. Companies started treating recruiters like vendors instead of partners or outside recruiters. Even inside recruiters, quite frankly, I'm not sure that they get the respect or the love that they need from the hiring managers. But I think it's lost a lot of its mojo and it's lost a lot of its value add in terms of really understanding the business and being that front line, that front brand ambassador of a business. You know, recruiters should be the top salesperson in the company in a way, because a different way to look at this question of how valuable is recruitment, I would say there's nothing more valuable in any business than recruitment. Because I don't care what you're building or selling or servicing or whatever your business model is, I would say nothing's more important than the people within that business. So therefore, the ability to recruit those people and attract those people into your business is extremely, extremely valuable. But how valuable is the recruitment industry? I think it's lost a lot of its in the recent decades. And I think it's gone down the hill. And I think whether it's candidates frustrated with recruiters for getting ghosted or hearing from them once and never hearing from them again, or hiring managers frustrated with their internal or external recruiters because they aren't seeing the quality of the candidate that they're looking for or that they need, or that they aren't moving fast enough, or whatever it is. It seems everybody's got to complain about the industry right now. And I think that it's kind of earned that negative reputation, that negative industry, because I don't think we've done a great job over the last couple of decades. Long-winded answer.
Yeah.
I got to say it again, though. How valuable is it? Nothing more valuable than recruiting the right people. How are we doing? Different story.
Exactly. But I think we should be brutally honest with each other if we want to get better, right? We shouldn't just sit here and say, people are important, therefore we are important. We need to say, well, how are we creating value? You started off on a negative. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Let's spin that around. Are you optimistic that we can improve our value again, or where do you think we're going?
Oh, I am crazy optimistic. And I ooze optimism. So hopefully you're getting some of that, and fine to think if I did start on negative. Yes, I believe that the need to identify, attract / recruit good people has never been more important. I do believe our workforce is going to change, right? Whether it's because of AI or the pandemic swing that we've been through and the talent wars that we've been through and the talent shortage to now to the supply demand issues that we have in the recruitment space. I think that it's never been more important to hire the right people. I think we'll see more and more of what I'll call a gig workforce or gig economy, where companies may have smaller core teams and leverage more either agentic or AI solutions, or they'll leverage more fractional or contract or temporary or outsourced or offshored or one of their million options before they build their FTEs or their full-time teams. And so I think that good recruiters are more in need than ever to help their companies or to help their clients identify the different sort of resource options that they have to fulfill their short-term and long-term needs. And I think that thanks to AI, thanks to things like psychometrics and personality profilers and greater data, greater intelligence, greater awareness, I think we have a real strong future ahead of us if we figure out how to use that data in the right way and how to structure that data. And you're going to hear me say data a million times because I think it's the key to our business. And I joke sometimes that I'm semi a recruitment company, I'm semi a tech company, and somewhat a data company, because it's in the data that I think we're going to find the real solutions in the real future that's going to take us to a place we've never been in the recruitment space, which is really exciting. I think, John, if you be careful, I'll talk the whole time, but I think we have an opportunity because of what AI is giving us to go from a reactive, transactional, commodity type of service and experience to a proactive, dare I say, predictive sort of place when it comes to hiring. And so I'm extremely optimistic about our future. That is, the recruiters that are doing that and accepting that and owning that and building that.
Yeah, I think there's optimism for what the recruitment as an industry will look like in 5-10 years time. Will everyone have gone on that journey? No. At the same time, I think people who listen to this podcast are open-minded, optimistic, looking to add more value, improve what they do. So hopefully we as a group will be the ones who in 5 or 10 years are less transactional, more valuable. So I like that. You put that really nicely and you paint a really good picture of the future. I think the million options is a really interesting one. So yeah, a classic recruitment website will say, hey, we do temp and perm recruitment.
Yeah.
Because an average client right now or in the past has really just been able to say, I need someone sitting in this seat now.
Yep.
I either want to go long-term, full-time employee, or I just need someone for a shorter period of time. And that was it. It was temp or perm.
That's right.
And you're right. That is going to fracture into literally a million different things. It might be robots, it might be software, but it will also be different ways of just engaging good people. And that is not going to be easy to navigate that world.
No,
Put yourself in the client's shoes. They're not a professional hirer. They're doing a job. They are a team manager. They have their own work to do. And then they're like, oh, great. Yeah, they're probably going to go to a piece of software or chat to AI and say, oh, yeah, how can I hire? It's like, here's your menu of a million different ways you can hire. Which one do you want? I don't know. Which one is right for me? You need an advisor who you trust. Love it. I'm going to pull you back, as excited as you are for the future and even for data. Let's talk first. Like, where is this coming from? Where are you now? Where have you come from? So tell us about Kelaca. How do you stand out? What do you do and how do you stand out from other agencies right now?
Okay. Yeah, I've never heard that question before, John. How do we stand out? The number one question you get from every prospect meeting, right? So started, again, I've been in the business for a bit, but started Kelaca 14 years ago. We started with 3 main goals. I wanted to have better partnerships with our clients, be a partner at the table, have a seat at the table, understand what's going on behind the curtains, if you will, act as part of their team, not just be a vendor on a list. I wanted to treat candidates better, have a better relationship with our candidates, ultimately drive a better recruiting experience for them so that they were happy even when they didn't get the job. And then my real passion actually is company cultures. And I wanted to create a culture at Kelaca where the team made the decisions and the team was what drove our culture, not the leadership. I feel like a lot of recruitment companies, or dare I say, I kind of consider a bad word, staffing companies out there, are very leadership driven, where the leadership decides what the Kool-Aid's going to taste like and they force it down the kid's mouth. And and they drive the metrics. And I didn't want that. I wanted a company that was bigger and better with every hire that we made. And every hire we made, our culture evolved and grew and strengthened. Not because I was fortunate, but because they were building it as a collective. So those were three things that why I started Kelaca. We started with very much a culture first mindset. I want to understand companies' values, their cultures, what makes them tick. And we've always been extremely passionate about that. In fact, I think we know a lot about our clients' cultures and values, sometimes more than they know about their own cultures and values and what they're all about and how they work. And I'll go back to the future. I'll come back to your question, but I'll say to the future real quick. I think that's going to be more important than ever. Trying to know what skill sets are going to exist in 2 years from now is a really tough thing to do. And so if we look at hires that are longer term hires or people that we want to hire, they're going to add to our company and our culture, we have to look past what they're doing today. We have to look to what they're going to be doing for us tomorrow and how they're going to help us become the next company or the next growth, the next stage of evolution. But I think we have a real need right now to be hiring more and more based on value and culture alignment than even skill set alignment, because the skills that we hired for today may not be the skills of tomorrow, right? Would you hire a coder the same way today that you will in 2 years from now, or a developer? I don't know. Maybe not, right? Maybe I would hire the no coder or a vibe coder with, certain industry experience or business experience or something instead of a hardcore coder. I don't know. So I think we have to look at culture values. So Kelaca has always been very focused on that. Extremely, extremely focused on what we say, redefining the recruiting experience. I want people to love talking to their Kelaca recruiters. And that's always been a big differentiator, because we could find the best people in the world, but if they don't return our call, then we've got no value to our clients. And so it's always been about community. It's always about building that Kelaca community and having people that know, like, and trust us. That's always been a big differentiator for us. Really speeding this up to today, and 14 years later, we now have an opportunity with AI, as I alluded to before, to gather data and structure that data from a company and a job and a culture standpoint, and from a candidate standpoint, greater than we ever have before. So I used to tell clients, hey, we'll find somebody that aligns with your culture and your values, and we'll ask them behavioral based questions, and we'll look for experiences, and we'll look in their recommendations for these sorts of things to ensure that they align with your values. Well, now, thanks to AI and profilers and psychometrics and all these different tools that are available to us, we can turn those questions and those requirements into data. And then we can use that data to give us better matching intelligence or match tech. And then we can use that to guide our recruiters and our hiring managers to have better conversations to validate and verify those data signals and those things that are coming out. And so how do we differentiate now? We are still culture first. We are very much AI powered, and we use AI to do it, but we are human driven. And I'm a big fan of this concept of human in control. I hear a lot of people talking about human in the loop, but I think we're in trouble if we're just in the loop. I think we've got to be at the steering wheel and in control, and giving our AI guidance and letting AI giving us some extra strength and insight and all of that to try to identify people that are aligned with our culture and our values. That's a quick way to say it as best I can.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so well put, and the passion comes across as well. And I'm sure that your consultants also kind of take that passion across.
I hope so.
There's so much in there. I mean, hiring, I don't know where to start. Hiring people who are going to be additive to your business, getting clients to love working with you, setting that bar really high, I think is just a great KPI, right? It's like, what are we trying to achieve here? If you've got such a statement. The other thing that jumped out at me was, we're all thinking, I think, how do we use an AI to improve what we do and create better value, better packages and services for our clients? It's clear hearing what you said there. You had the direction and the strategy first. So you're culture focused, you're culture first.
Yep.
That's your ethos. You'd already been doing that with your clients. So we'll talk about this in a minute, but I assume they see that value. You've built a business on that. And then that means you can say, okay, we're really good at this. What would happen if we could get more data on something we're really good at? You go and get that data. You use AI to enhance that. And that takes you forward into the higher value future. So I really
That's
like that,
right.
because I think a lot of agency owners are thinking, what do we do? You're flooded with, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. You're
Right.
being led by the supplier, right?
Right.
By
Yeah.
the rec tech.
hmm
Whereas I think there's a really good message there. Be led by what you're great at.
Yeah. I got to say
Yeah,
to
go on.
that, just sorry, you're making me think of all sorts of things too.
Good.
Listen, we haven't been perfect in this. You know, I think a lot of companies say culture first, by the way. I'm not the only recruiter that says we recruit for culture and value alignment. I know that. A lot of us say it. And a lot of us do behavioral based interviewing questions, and we go put our candidates through the ringer and so on, and to try to verify and validate this information. Recruiters are good at asking, the hiring managers the right questions to understand these things. I think one of our greatest learnings was when we started to try to use AI to validate and verify what we were doing the first couple of times. We built our first agent, I'll say agentic solution, but our first agent named Alex had a first name and a last name, LinkedIn profile, used a recruiter account. He did all of our sourcing. He didn't do all, I had a team of sourcers too, but he did all of our sourcing. He did outreach to candidates over LinkedIn message and email and text. Didn't call, although could have called with today's technology, would do basic engagement, talk to our recruiters through a Slack channel, and then it would schedule interviews. And we thought we had finally found a way to make it happen. And as long as we teach Alex how to ask the right questions and how to dig into the culture and the values and the alignment and things like that. And what we found was it was ultimately that attempt to automate what we thought we were doing was actually a big mess and a big failure, because it was just ultimately kind of keyword matching, right? It was saying, okay, we need Python, and it was finding Python with X years of experience. And we were finding someone that was called a Python developer. So Alex was out there sourcing, like I think a lot of recruiters do, based on keywords and essentially Boolean strings or Boolean searches. Now I'm dating myself a lot because I don't think people use Booleans like they used to. But anyhow, I just say that because I think we're still early stages, and I don't want to mislead to say that we've figured out the perfect solution forever, because I thought I had that 2 years ago, and Alex brought in 15,000 some candidates in a short period of time, and only one of them got the job. Because Alex was not better at
Wow.
understanding culture and values. Yeah, that data stinks, right? Look at the ROI or lack of ROI on
Yeah.
that data. Um, but there was so much learnings in this, because the way our human recruiters were qualifying people against values alignment, our AI wasn't able to do at the time, because we didn't know what data the AI needed in order to do that. And we didn't have that data in a structured data format on the job and company and culture side in order to properly do that. And so there was a huge, and is a continued huge, learning curve, especially as AI advances, in terms of trying to figure out how to make this work. So I don't want to mislead people and say, I've got it all figured out, this is perfect. I'm figuring this
Mm.
out every day. And I think it's a big benefit of being a smaller size boutique firm, in that we are changing stuff. I was on the phone last night till 10 o'clock with our head of innovation for Kelaca, talking about some tweaks that we're making to our AI product that's officially launching next week. Right. And we're making tweaks right now and changes in order to improve the quality. And I think we always will be. But um, anyhow, sorry, a little bit of a side rant.
No, I think that's great. And I appreciate the honesty. You can kind of sit back and listen to these things and think, why has everyone else figured out AI?
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, yeah, you didn't get it right 2 years ago. We
I
can't
hope
be
I
sure
have
we've
the
got it right
range.
now, because yeah. But in 2 years' time, I'm sure we'll look back and say, there's so much more I could have done.
There's so much more I could do
Um,
now. Yeah. And think about that from a hiring standpoint, that challenge you just said, where we were 2 years ago
mm,
versus today versus where we're going to be in 2 years from now. How do you hire somebody that's going to be valuable to a company for that 6 year span? It's tough to do.
yeah. Well, I think I'm sure you do this, but you're in a position to share your experience in
Mhm.
a way that's relevant to the client. So
Yeah.
they can say, finding this really hard. I don't know who to choose. I've got decision fatigue or paralysis
Yeah.
because I can't predict the future. And you can say, yeah, exactly. We're in the same boat here. Here's
Right.
how we feel, but here's how you can do it. And there are answers. There are do it through culture, understand your strategy. It's the big picture
That's right.
understanding that
That's right.
helps us do the little things.
Yep.
Don't lead with the little things and hope the strategy comes along. Picking up on something else you said, clearly you've got some real value, but you also said that you're not the only recruitment agency to say, hey, culture is important, behavioral profiling is important. So here's a big challenge for me in my world. How do you get a client who doesn't really understand everything you do to really believe that you are higher value than someone else who's just saying the same words as you, but doesn't have the value that you deliver?
Well, John, that's funny. I was going to ask you for that answer. It is in 30 years of doing this, that has always been the challenge, right? That I often tell people, because we hire a lot of people into Kelaca to work as recruiters that don't have industry experience. So we have to teach people the industry. And we often say that the greatest barrier to entry on the sales side of our industry is the reputation of our industry and trying to differentiate yourself and to show the value, because everyone says the same old thing. So a couple of things that we do. First of all, we don't go in and give a sales pitch. We go in and ask a million questions. It's all about discovery. It's all about learning, all about understanding. We
Yeah.
are not right for everybody. We are right for some. If we're not right for them, we'll point them to the right place. But we try to go in and ask the right, intelligent, client-focused questions, right? We need to understand what their pain points are, what their goals are, where they want to go. And maybe we're a partner that can help solve those problems. We know very quickly in some cases, if they just want to give us a job description and say, go for it, send us what you got, then they're probably not the right, but let me restate that. Then we are probably not the right provider for them. And that's a nice way of saying they're not a good client for us, but that's
Yeah.
ultimately the same thing. And we've certainly fired many of those. But the reputation of the industry. So how do we get clients to believe what we're saying, and what we're saying is actually different from the rest? I think case studies help. I think data helps. If I can sit down in front of a client and say, currently across the market, most hiring managers would say that 86% of their hires are considered not good job fits out to 18 months. So at the 18-month point, they feel like they got it wrong 86% of the time. But if I can show data that on our side, they feel they've got it right 86% of the time, not wrong, and I can show you data to back that, well, then maybe company or client, it'd be worth giving us a shot to work on this. We are not the cheapest. There are plenty of other recruitment companies racing to the bottom, and God love you, good luck to you. I played that game for a little bit. It's not a fun game to play back in the 08-09 crisis.
Yeah, I'm guessing you didn't win it because no one ever wins
Nobody
that
wins
game.
it, guys. Please, let's stop playing that silly game, because it's a loss for everybody and for the client and for the candidates, because it just promotes bad quality of service and bad experiences. But there's plenty of them that are playing that game. So I stopped playing that game a while ago. I charge a price that I feel is fair and relevant to us. And for the most part, when clients work with us, they agree and they're willing to keep paying us that price. And like anybody, there's potential for volume discounts or retainer sort of, deals and things like that. There's competitive ways to price, but I'm not going to race to the bottom. I'm going to use our data. I'm going to use our proof of concepts, our case studies, our client referrals to help strengthen our message. But I think all that starts with a well-trained sales force, if you will. We don't call them salespeople. We call them client advisors that go in and ask relevant questions that matter to them. And we're not trying to force a solution down their throat. We're trying to understand what's going on. And if we can help, fantastic. If we can't, okay. We're actually starting a series, a little self-promotion. And I don't know when we'll air this podcast, but we're starting a series next week. That's a 5-part series on how to do smarter hiring. And we're giving away a lot of stuff for free to our clients. And I guess our competitors, if they want to join too, and they want to learn. And yeah, we're going to show a little bit as to what we do with our tools, our proprietary tools that we've built. But we're going to show people, here's how you can start by improving a job description. Here's some things to do. Here's how you can better structure your interview process and your interview guides. And here's how you can start to make better decisions in a world that's getting trickier and trickier. And so, I say all of that because I think perhaps some of that too builds our credibility, maybe on top of the case
Yeah.
studies and the data. I think I share a lot on LinkedIn. I post 3 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on LinkedIn, and I share pretty openly my thoughts on the industry and what's working, what's not working. Sometimes about successes, but a lot of times about my failures and the lessons I've learned from those failures. And anyhow,
Yeah. If I'll summarize some of that, I don't know why
please.
you felt you needed to ask me the question. That is a great answer. If I kind of dive into that, some of the phrases I use. So the big one is show, don't tell.
Hmm.
So as you say, one of the barriers to winning business in our industry is that reputation, because everyone can tell, everyone can say they are culture first or they are
Yep.
market leading or whatever. There's so much stuff we can say. How do we show it? And I think, I'll pick out some examples of what you've just said. That recent one, giving away your expertise. I've got your new newsletter, and I was surprised that you said, hey, here's a prompt you can put into your AI that will help you
Yeah.
do almost our job for us. And I was like, hang on, you are cannibalizing your own business and just giving this knowledge away for free. But in the show, don't tell model, in effect, what you're doing, the message you send by that is, it's not about prompts. Like, you can't fix this with a prompt. You need the expertise. You need to understand how. You need the context. You need the networks. You need all of that. I think if you sit a client down and tell them that, they'll be like, yeah, you would say that. I could probably just prompt it. Whereas if you say, here's a prompt, go and do it yourself, I don't think they're going to go and do it themselves. I think the ones who really need help are going to say, wow, it must be more than just a prompt. I need you. So it's
Yeah.
painful, it's scary to do, but yet giving away your knowledge and pulling aside the curtain kind of thing, builds that confidence and credibility. So I think it's a really
Yeah.
powerful approach.
You and I both know that a lot of companies, hiring managers say, oh, I can't afford to use a recruiter. And how quickly we can get in front of a whiteboard and say, here's why you can't afford not to use a recruiter, because your odds of hiring the right person are slim to none. It's going to cost you X dollars to find this person. It's going to cost you X more to replace them once they quit or once you have to fire them. And you'd be better paying, a percentage fee up front, and getting better quality out of the gates. But back to your very first question, how valuable is the recruitment industry? I think a lot of recruiters are still failing their clients. And so I would rather a hiring company, a hiring manager, use my prompt for free and try to make it better, try to improve their process, try to improve their job descriptions or their workforce assessments or whatever they need to do up front, and try to do that, than pay some lousy recruiter 20%. No offense. Sorry, everybody, if you don't like that, but I'd rather they try that. And I always think, Jon, how would I advise my family members? How do I advise? I'm the youngest of 8 kids. I've got a lot of nieces and nephews. They're all old enough now to be working and having lives. And they often ask me, right? Should I use you to do this? And sometimes the answer is, yeah, you probably should. But you know what? There's also plenty of times if they can't afford, because they don't have the cash outlay or whatever it is, or they want to try it on their own, or they're still small enough that they're in that friends and family referral sort of hiring space, try the prompt. I'd rather you do that than not do anything. But God forbid, don't go pay some lousy recruiter that's offering it 10%, because you're going to get what you pay for. God forbid, don't just post a job and pray the right applicants apply to it, because we all know that doesn't work. The odds of that working, I should say, are slim to none. And so try something different. And I would rather you take the stuff I'm giving you for free and try that than not try it all. Because, like we tell prospective clients when they say, sorry, we can't afford you, we say, okay, fine. We'll talk to you in 6 months when that person's no longer there and you're in that much more trouble. And you've spent now umpteen % of their salary because you got the wrong hire. We'll
Yeah.
talk to you in 6 months. But it
I
takes
get,
time
yeah.
to get to that spot.
Again, that mindset's a really good one. If you think our clients are neutral right now, the average hiring manager, let's generously say they're neutral. They don't know much. I think most people listening to this are higher value recruiters or
Sure.
aspire to that. So we want the
Yeah.
better clients. If they go off and do it badly or they have a bad experience, they've gone from neutral to being worse at hiring because of what their experience has been. They're suspicious of recruiters because they've worked with a bad one, or they've used job boards and say, this is draining and awful and I'm never looking at CV again. Whereas if we say, they're neutral and we can give them some expertise now, so try this prompt or think about this, or just review your team, like have a think about what's missing. And if they do come back in 2 months' time, we're now working with a more educated hiring manager.
That's right.
Now, have they learned how to do an incredible hiring process? No, because you don't learn that in 2 months while also doing a full-time job. Have they become a little more educated and a little more interested and are able to see the value in what we do?
Yeah.
Probably they have improved on that. So I think that is an investment. It feels funny to give away the secrets, but I think we're investing. Everyone is talking about AI-powered recruiters, but what does that actually look like? With Atlas as your CRM, it means every interaction with your candidate is automatically captured and searchable. If they mention their salary in an email, it's instantly recorded without you having to write anything. And behind the scenes, Atlas discovers every company that a candidate has worked for, the industries those companies operate in, as well as things like company size and description. All this means you can do your job much faster and add more value to your clients. To learn more about Atlas, go to recruitwithatlas.com.
I think hiring has become more complex too. And you mentioned some things like CVs or resumes, depending what continent is watching us right now. They've changed over the years, right? It's tougher right now to trust a CV because a lot of them are AI enhanced and cover letters are AI enhanced. It's tough to trust what's being put out there. Sometimes you could have the best resume or CV in the world and the person shows up to interview and they're horrible. Or you could have the worst CV in the world and person shows up and they end up being your best hire ever. And so it's tough to match those up right now and getting tougher. You made me think about this, that in 2 months they can't learn how to do it. Makes me think of my old 1984 Jeep Wagoneer, one of my first cars. And it was such a simple engine. And we didn't have YouTube, obviously, in the 80s or the 90s, but it was a relatively simple structure. I could open the hood and I could try to fix things and figure it out and I could tinker. And I was good enough to get there because of engineering sort of mind. Well, now I open the hood of my car, I can't even see the parts, right? Because it's all covered with stuff. And the only way to get something going is you have to plug it into a computer system to make it work and to run diagnostics and blah, blah, blah. And I have access to things like YouTube. So I could even YouTube, how do I fix this on my car? Or this is what's happening. I could try to get there and fix my car, but there's no way I'm going to be as good as the person that's gone to school for this, that's spent their life tuning and fixing these complex engines. And nothing's more complex than people, by the way, in hiring and the interview process and selection process, let alone once they get started. It's kind of made me think of that of an analogy. Same way I shouldn't fix my car today. I can look at it, I can lift the hood up and maybe try to change my own oil if I can get to the oil things now. But I'd be a heck of a lot better to bring in someone that knows what's really going on. And there's a better chance my car is going to last longer and run better if I have a professional do it. And because I'm not a mechanic.
Yeah.
I don't know if that.
But the mechanic I like it. And it's given me, I'm going to keep running with this idea. Are they a mechanic these days? Are they a technologist? I'm not really sure. But if you've used YouTube to understand a little bit, if you can use that language to say it's sticking, then the professional will be able to take what you've given them and run with it much more powerfully than,
exactly.
I'm a car expert. So I go in and be like, it's a bit bumpy. And I think a mechanic's going to be like, I'm going to have to do everything. You are not helping here. Just get out of the way. Whereas actually a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous, but a little bit of knowledge and vocab can allow you to say to the mechanic, hey, I can give you some useful data, some useful feedback that might help you to then do your job really well.
Yeah.
And
it's a really interesting thing because
I'm going to kill that analogy because, sorry, go on.
Okay. I'm going to take it out of the car side now and go back to recruiting. It's interesting because we need data from both. We need the data from both sides. We need it from the recruiter and that expertise, that knowledge to know what questions to ask. We need a ton of data from a hiring manager to understand. The funny thing is, though, we'll work on a $200,000 or 200,000 pound job, again, depending what country you're in right now. We'll work on a higher level role, and the hiring manager wants to give us 10 minutes to talk about what they're looking for. And then they want to give us a job description. In reality, I need 10 hours worth of time to ask questions of that hiring manager to don't just tell me they need strong communications skills. Tell me who they're communicating to, how often they're doing it, what platforms they're using, what sort of relevancy, what is the content like, et cetera, et cetera. I need 10 levels of data just for the communication skills comment, let alone the hard skills, the soft skills, the environmental cues, the behaviors, characteristics, traits, all the extra stuff. And so what I'm excited about is the AI that we have built is tailored to drive hiring managers through that kind of rep qualification process, if you will, that job intake process, and to get that level of data in a faster, more efficient way to go about it. So now we actually have the data as the mechanic to do the right repair, to find the right person. And that's what I'm really excited about. And that's why I think AI has now empowered us to be more precise and to finally get the information we need from the car owner, the hiring manager, to give them what they really need, which is a smooth, non-bumpy car.
Yeah. And I said I'd kill the analogy because I end up otherwise just running with an analogy, and we have a mechanics podcast, not a recruitment podcast, but I can't help myself. I'm going to keep going. Yeah, in effect, the mechanic, rather than saying, hey, do you know what's wrong? Or does the clutch feel a bit weird? It's like they've driven with you for the last 1,000 miles. And they say, and they can see when it's stuck and when it's jutted and when it's whatever. Again, I don't have the language for this. But that's really powerful. There's two things to this. I want to hear what you then do with that, because I know it's exciting. But I think it's so important to engage clients and get information from them. But the average client, even a good client, will say, I do not have the time for this. I see you as an outsourced solution and I want to outsource it from the start, from now. Hence the kind of classic, here's the job description, go away now. So I'm really interested in how you engage a client, how you say to a client, to the hiring manager, great, we need 20 hours of data from you. Strap in. I'm just going to take 20 hours of data. That is how you are going to do the great job. But your clients are going to be resistant to giving you that time and investment. So how do you deal with that, first of all?
Yeah. Well, there's the verbal way of dealing with that, which is, do you have time to hire the wrong person and train the wrong person and backfill that person? Okay. But let's say they're still resisting past that. We have taken, and we now have the ability to take their job description, run it through our AI, produce an audit that will say, here's the gaps. Here's the must-have gaps that we need to understand because your job description doesn't say it. We have then taken that and we can put it into our system and sort of gamified the experience. So a hiring manager can go into, I don't know if I've said the name yet, Kira, which is the name of our tool. A hiring manager can go into Kira, log into Kira, see their job in a format that allows them to do things like drag a simple bar across. And so it's not just a skill set, but it's a competency or expertise level in the skill set, or how frequently was it used, or how, in what sort of environment was it used, etc. But it's a very quick way for them to go through and fill out a form, in a lack of better words. Now, in reality, there are multiple bots and all sorts of AI working in the background to make this form possible. But they can change these things. And each time they change or slide something over or make an update, or they accept something that our AI has recommended in addition to that, they are ultimately changing the data structure that is that job description. We've kind of taken job descriptions and put them back into ones and zeros for for my coding friends out there. But for the hiring manager, in fact, one of our advisors, UK advisors, was looking at it and said, feels like a game. Like, this is kind of fun. I can go through and just drag this here and drop this here and kind of build my $6 million person, and that's a $6 million man reference for the older crowd. But so that's how we've done it. Now, our client advisors, our recruiters still like to have conversations, and they're still going to have some questions, and there's still going to be some things to validate and understand. But our system now will drive a hiring manager through that qualification process, I would say in less than 30 minutes. I don't know. I think if they, the more they use it, and by the way, when they do it the first time, it probably takes 30 minutes. When they do it the second time, the system remembers that they've done these sorts of things before. So now it's going to give them recommendations based on what they've done. In time, we will have the data on which candidates they hired, which candidates are performing, because this ties through the entire employment life cycle. So now we can say that, John, Sue, and Sally that are on your team have done well with this sort of thing. Is that what you're looking for in comparison? Or do you want to add to your culture now by getting somebody a little bit different here? And so the more Kira gets to know them and the more they spend time doing it, I would think it'd be relatively fast. So fast being, 10, 15 minutes to go through and kind of fill out your profile, if you will, or fill out the job profile. There's a lot of beautiful parts to this too. We've built it up so you can access at a hiring organization level or our client levels, or they can log in themselves if we ever license this off. But also there's at a role level and a position level. So we kind of have like a blueprint, if you will, at the role level. Like, here's the client advisor role. But when we actually need to go and hire, there's a position level underneath that says, okay, for this specific hire, what's the salary, or what's the, or what's the interview model, or whatever, what are the specifics to this one? And so they don't have to re-input at the role level every time. We're building this blueprint of data. And again, all of this starts with our system parsing in if they have something existing to get them started. If they want to start from scratch, they can do that too. And they say, I want to hire somebody like this, or I want to hire, type it in however you want. And the system will build it out and build the JD for them and do all those things and build structured interview guides and do the whole works, and not structured interview guides. Like, here's the questions you've got to ask. Here's what we're looking for in the answers. And then when you take the data from that interview or the transcription and kick it back in, it'll give you the next round of questions to further validate, or it will help you sniff out the yellow flags or the red flags and say, this does or doesn't make sense, or this contradicts what we've learned over here or what we're seeing in other places. So we need to ask another validating question to understand that signal. I'm not taking
Yeah.
human out of the process. I'm trying to give them better insights to improve their instincts, because I've hired 12,000 some people now over my years, and I've learned that my instincts are kind of crap. And it really depends. It depends how well caffeinated I am, quite frankly. It's got a big impact. So a lot to learn.
I find that amazing. And it's almost a revolutionary thought. Yeah, the way you've explained that. I just jotted down mind reading. Because in effect, many recruiters, even good recruiters, sit down with the client doesn't want to give them a lot of time. So they end up getting, sub 30 minutes on what the hiring manager wants. And that includes all the stakeholders around them, right? There's no way it can be done. Good recruiters end up being mind readers, or lucky. I don't know.
Lucky guessers.
One of the two. Yeah. You're just like, right, I can get great people, but God knows if they're going to fit, because I have no blueprint. I have no insights beyond slow conversation that happened in a very short amount of time. Just an anecdote from me. I obviously help recruiters to work out how to pitch their value to clients at a pitch stage, and then set themselves up to negotiate and get a good fee, which is important. And they say, how am I going to do this? I've got a 30-minute meeting with a client. I've got to take the spec. I've got to sell my business to them. I've got to sell me to them. I've got to understand their company, and I've got to, position myself and sell my services, and then consult with them. I recommend doing that. And I'm like, you can't.
You can't.
Cannot. Those are all really important things.
Yeah.
And 30 minutes is not enough. Now, what excites me about this Kira tool is we're not saying, hang on, I need another 3 hours from you to get super insights. That's not an attractive thing to say to a hiring manager.
Yep.
But if you can say, oh, can you just fill out a form? Because I think that's that's the language they would use. And then it's gamified enough that it's a fun thing for them to do.
And it's fun. And it forces them to think, John. And this is the thing too.
Yeah.
Good recruiters can get hiring managers to I don't want to say change their minds, but think differently about a role. Or they might
Yeah.
think, you know what, you're right, recruiter. I don't want this, or I really want this, or now that you show me this CV, I realize I want this. And you know how it changed, or we call them the floating wrecks that change. This system, Kira, kind of forces hiring managers through that thought process. And I think it's fun for them. I'm a hiring manager too, right? I hire all the time. And
Yeah.
it's fun for me to go through and kind of play with these things and say, oh, that's interesting. So if I do this, that means that this one probably doesn't make sense. So you're saying I can't have a salesperson that has the resiliency trait and doesn't mind getting knocked down, but they also have to be great at follow up and documentation. Like, oh, those aren't the same people, or
Yeah. Yeah.
it's interesting in how it kind of interacts together. I think we can make it fun. And I think, at the end of the day, again, going back to how do I get past the hurdles of differentiation and things like that, I can show the data. If I can show you that this is going to lead to a higher quality hire, you're going to have some fun doing it. And you're going to not waste your time on bad interviews. You're not going to waste your time on bad hires. You're not going to overspend, all those sorts of things. You're going to save money ultimately because you're doing it right the first time. Sure, I'll go play a game, and fill out a form and do these things. And the next time I do it, it's going to get better. And by the way, we also now have data on, how hiring managers are interviewing and how the structured interviews are going. And maybe we can do some coaching and some helping. And now we have data on the people as well in terms of let's look at learning and development. Let's look at performance management. Let's look at, I mean, I don't want to go too far out of the box, but
Yeah.
this data has some really interesting insight in
Well,
long-term play.
yeah, no, I am going to invite you out the box. I mean, it's been an incredible conversation already, but where could this take us? Where do you see it? Because I assume what you're not thinking is that we get all this incredible insight and it just makes us better at what we're doing right now.
That's boring.
Like, exactly. I can tell.
Boring, John.
I can tell like you're going to say that. So what's exciting for you? Where do you want
Boy.
Kelaca to be? Or where do you want
Yeah. You
this
know,
to go?
I say, of course, I want Kelaca to be there, but I want all recruiters to be here. I love recruitment. I've loved it for 30 years. I hope to love it for another 30. I have fallen out of love with how the industry has changed over the years and morphed. And I miss the good old days of pre-internet recruiting where it was really about your Rolodex and knowing people and having relationships and understanding what made people tick. I do miss some of those days, and resumes could be trusted. I think we have the ability, and I think the world and the client is going to require it because of the changing workforce. And the workforce has been changing already for the last couple of decades with offshore and outsourced and fractional and contract to hire or temporary or whatever. It's already been changing, but now you add what likely is the first solution is companies asking, can I use an agent or some sort of automation or AI or robot to do this for me? And I think we need to offer that as part of our solutions too. But I think the future of recruitment is in what I'll call PHI or predictive hiring intelligence. There's zero reason I shouldn't be able to go into our client and do a workforce assessment, understand what they have, then have a conversation and understand where they want to go, where they want to be tomorrow, next year, 2 years from now. Do a gap analysis between those two, understand where the gaps and opportunities lie to not only strengthen their skill based needs, but also their cultural needs and their behavioral needs. So if our team needs a little energy boost, then maybe we need someone with this type of, behavior set or profile or whatever it may be. But I think we can start to get to the point where we get into predictive hiring. We go to our clients and we say, hope the year's gone well. Let's get an update. Let's see where things are at. Here's where we see it in 6 months. Here's the people you're going to need 6 months from now. And we have them ready to go. Here's 10 options that have been pre-qualified, locked and loaded from a culture value alignment, from a skill-based alignment, and they are ready to go. And whether it's a full-time or someone that is, a fractional resource, I think we'll see more and more people that work for themselves that have 3 to 5 different jobs at any given time, kind of that gig workforce again. So I think it'll be recruiters' job to be that key advisor on the team on how are we going to achieve our strategies. And to me, predictive, or I'll use another term here, which is the zero time to hire. I think that's a future in where we're going.
Yeah. And I bring
I'll
it
say
back to the word.
one more thing to this, John. Sorry. That's still just talking about hiring. We're not talking about how that same data in that workforce assessment helps us towards workforce optimization and ensuring that we are training and developing our people in the right way, ensuring that our performance reviews and conversations are set up in the right way to develop our people, to retain our people. If we do our jobs right, the only recruitment we need to do is for growth, right? I guess there's always some level of attrition for life stages and things like that. But, if we do our jobs right in predictive hiring intelligence, you're hiring companies to help them grow at all times. You are not, backfilling those that are quitting or those that aren't being developed or that aren't engaged anymore versus the 70% that Gallup says right now are disengaged at some level. And so
Yeah.
I think we've got a real opportunity to change the entire employment life cycle. And I think that starts with better recruiting, better data.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, let's bring that back to the word value. How valuable is what you've just described? We sit, for those of you watching, who are listening, not watching, Keith's face has just lit up even more than it lit up when he was talking about the future. It's so valuable. You sit down, you would be sitting down with the CEO and the board and saying, right, I am your growth engine. I am the key to unlocking how you grow this business, almost how you run this business. Like it almost sounds too ambitious, but I think you've painted a really interesting picture of a path we could take as recruiters who are maybe under-respected, too transactional, as you said at the start. I think there is a path for us to go so far in terms of how valuable we could be to our clients. So I love it.
So to end on the positive note, then I agree. I think we could be at the highest point of the value chain when it comes to this, because again, whether the people are building tech, selling, delivering a service, whatever it is, it comes down to the people. And it comes down to our resources, I should say. Sometimes these people may be agentic solutions. I have no doubt. I have less sourcers than I used to have because I now have agents that can do it. I spend less time scheduling interviews because it's easier to automate. I think one other thing too, and I just want to say this, I've talked a little bit about keeping humans in control. That's from both sides. I think a key part to this, especially as we all try to get the right balance of how much do we automate and how much does AI take over. I think the key is leaving the choice with the humans. If they want to have an AI experience where they get immediate experience, they want to interview with an avatar, for goodness sakes, because they can do that. Okay, that's their choice. But if they want to talk to a human, they should have that choice. Just know that, they're ultimately all going to come back to a human that's making a decision with AI guidance.
And regular listeners will know choice is so powerful. Like, people are different. Clients are different. They value different things. Again, I come back to your point. Your strategy is in place. You are culture first. You are getting the data to get the insights to then lead to the instincts. But and then build that in a way that works for as many good clients as possible and candidates, of course.
Yeah.
This has been incredibly fascinating, Keith. Thank you very much. I definitely want to talk to you in a couple of years and see where the future went.
Yeah.
Where we are in 2 years and your next big idea or the fact that this big idea has become even bigger. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing your approach, your ideas, and your predictions for the future with everyone.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, John. And thanks to everybody listening.
Thanks again to Keith for sharing his insights and predictions. 3 things stood out for me. First, his honesty in realizing that recruitment has lost value over the years, and his plan for turning that around to make us the most valuable partners to businesses who want to grow. Second, how Keith has developed a way of getting far more data and insights from hiring managers at the start of the process. The better we understand our clients and their needs, the more we can apply our expertise and instincts. And third, the idea of predictive hiring intelligence and moving to 0 time to hire. As Keith says, it would be boring to just get better at what we're already doing when there's so much more value we can offer. If you found the show valuable, please leave a review and remember to subscribe or follow the show on your podcast app. You can also get more insights and inspiration by signing up to my added value emails on Substack. You can find the link in the show notes. Now, go create some value. Thank you to Atlas for sponsoring the Value of Recruitment podcast. To learn more about how Atlas is creating an AI platform that helps recruitment agencies generate more placements with less effort, visit recruitwithatlas.com.